Let's kick it off. It would be great to share with the audience a little bit about where you've been hunkered down for the last year, and if you've made any
Yes.
changes to that. And then also, obviously, a bit about your role at Dell.
Mhm.
And I found it really actually interesting, the transition that you spoke of since, the last 4 years since you merged with EMC. So if you could share a bit about that transition, that would be terrific.
Great. Thanks, Val. And hello from Austin, Texas. We are going through not only pandemic, but very strange weather lately. So I'm happy to be here. Okay, so I'll start with my role. And this is a bit of an education of the evolution and journey that Dell Technologies has gone on. So I lead the Dell Technologies B2B brand and go-to-market activities, which is really inclusive of advertising, media, brand content publishing, and customer storytelling. So a bit of context on that B2B front in those motions. Just over 4-ish years ago, Dell and EMC merged. So this was really part of our vision to be an end-to-end technology provider and really shifted us to have a big focus on that B2B space. To really nod to that to that vision, we actually renamed our company Dell Technologies. So a lot of people will see Dell, that's our computer brand, but Dell Technologies is our end-to-end technology brand. And that's really to indicate that we are so much more than just computers. So this marked a turning point, and we've really been rapidly developing enterprise capabilities across storage, cloud, edge, to name a few. However, for my role, as someone leading our brand conversation and really that transformation, we've been presented with a pretty big challenge of like how do we shift the perception of Dell Technologies of an end-to-end company that has a pretty strong reputation in computers. So really over the past years, we've been building our B2B marketing muscle to get the word out and shift those perceptions around our vision, really educate around our capabilities and our ability to partner with businesses of all sizes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that from a brand awareness and consideration, I mean, Dell is it as far as PCs. So to kind of extend that into the other those other that whole slew of portfolio products you have is a really
Mhm.
interesting challenge. So speaking to that, I mean, let's rewind like about a year ago. I think you were planning to kick off, or you had already were in the middle of kicking off some major marketing initiatives, and
Mhm.
they clearly came to a halt. So can you just kind of walk us through you with your head, cut off, running around?
That sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone's just like, it's like literally a year ago, pretty much exactly at this time. So for that B2B brand, we've gotten a lot of momentum throughout the company, and we were just about to launch a pretty big and new brand campaign for the company. So we were, as marketers, people will appreciate this. We were in the final editing stages of our creative, and we were actually going to premiere during the NCAA March Madness, and then we were going to be all up in like a lot of PGA golf and a lot of sports. Then, like as we all witnessed, it just came crashing down. It was like every day something got canceled, and they just made us like pause. I mean, both personally and professionally, and like we had to ask ourselves, okay, where do we go from here? Like, what do we do? So last year at this time, and it's so funny reflecting on it, like literally a year later. Our first reaction, and I'm pretty proud of this as a company, really was human. And so, really taking care of our team members and customers. We ended up canceling our launch plans, and just we ran some stuff that we had in the can, and that was really hard for the team to really pivot. But we knew that this was, for lack of a better word, unprecedented times. It's true, even though that word gets used a lot. But really started to roll up our sleeves. So, what we wanted to do is make sure that we were in service of our team members, making sure they were safe, and then also making sure that we were there for our customers. So, some examples are like Dell Technologies has been a proponent of flexible work for many years now. So I've been working from home and the office hybridly for many years now. So for most of our team members, that was fairly easy for us to do, but not so much for a lot of our customers. They weren't set up to be remote. So not only did we step in to be an immediate tech provider, We also stepped in really to be consultants on best practices for going remote, securely, and really fast. Like for some customers, we actually turned parking lots into tech distribution centers that allowed some major companies to go, completely remote in some cases, like within 48 hours. And that's definitely that B2B muscle of like, we provided the computers, but also the networking and that support to get that up and running. We didn't stop there. The healthcare industry, incredibly stressed. Many hospitals were exasperating power supply. So we have a lot of stories of really of our teams working around the clock and literally around the world to ensure that hospital data was restored, secure, and available at that incredibly critical time. And then the other thing that we're really proud of is just like some things that happened, internally. Our team members were empowered to do like what it takes to help where they can. So we did a lot of small things, like a lot of our tech specialists helped teachers set up remote classrooms. Our CEO, Michael Dell, he actually hosted remote story times for kids on like what was suddenly like take your kid to work every day. But we made the best of it. And then the other thing that was good too was like our in terms of managers, we were introduced to some really empathetic human leadership styles, really to manage how we get through this with our mental health as intact as we could. So, it was a life changing time. We had high hopes. We still do. But we also had to learn to pivot and be realistic. And so, we learned a lot of lessons and tell you the truth, we still are.
I mean, it's really amazing to see that sort of pivot and focus that you have around that humanistic side to things rather than sort of your
Mhm.
business goals, which is great. And I think the two now have become a lot more closely hand to hand, with many
Mhm.
brands now, developing their whole marketing initiatives around that. So, which is really terrific. Um, so you did mention kind of a bit about native branding and how you used your publisher relationships to
Mhm.
kind of share those stories that you were just relaying to us. Can you share some of those tactics and approaches?
Yeah, yeah. So, when the pandemic hit, and this, not that we hadn't done this in the past, but it was really important when this happened. We did end up canceling the launch of our campaign. But, as marketers and as a brand, we wanted to keep the lights on, but we realized we also needed to be agile. So we really looked and pivoted into content and video and some of our key publisher partners to keep our voice in the market. So we had one of these unofficial mantras at the time, which is we wanted to make sure we were serving and not selling. And this became really important in how we started to deliver information, which was, we really went and developed content that was raw and effective, and we wanted to make sure it was relevant to the current environment. So we packaged up, the things that we were doing, some of the best practices of working remote, for example, or what's happening in the classroom, and we partnered with some of those major publishers. And instead of doing, some prepared storytelling videos, we actually did a live event series. We brought in our executives, we brought in some customers and experts. And so, while we really like native platforms to tell our stories and really reach that robust B2B audience, this process, which would normally take 5 to 6 months to build up, we pulled this off in weeks to make sure that the conversations were relevant, fresh, and really most of all, helpful. And so really like kind of that partnership redefined.
I love it. I love that. I think it'd be interesting to learn now that, we're about a year in, and I believe you started a new campaign with a completely
Mhm.
kind of new tagline and approach. Would love to learn more about that. And is it debuting like now or?
Yeah, so it's going to debut at the end of this month.
Oh,
I think we have someone running on CTV, but you'll see it on linear at the end of this month, and we're really excited about it. So I'll give you a bit of the background of how we got there. When we started, first of all, we're looking at the work that we had about a year ago, and it was very optimistic, which what we call the before times. That was the place we were. We were excited, and then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, oh, this sounds a little tone deaf. And so what we really did at that time too is we pivoted as we were doing the native things to keep our voice in the market. We got to work and built our new platform, and during the pandemic. So this is all from our agency working remote, from our teams working remote. And our goal really was to find an authentic approach that was true to who we were. And some of those points of inspiration actually we took from ourselves over the past months of really servicing our customers, partnering with them, and really finding that relentless spirit we had to just like figure it out no matter what those challenges or obstacles were. So our new platform, creative platform, is really around stop at nothing. And you'll start to see it's about stop at nothing on to develop new solutions for our customers, and we stop at nothing to get things done, even when times are difficult. So we really brought that into how we start to communicate about ourselves and about our customers. So you'll start to see it on broadcast at the end of this month, and we're incredibly proud of how it tells our story, and really also our customer stories and what technology and partnership really can accomplish.
I don't think I asked you this yesterday, but who helped you support you creatively? Did you work in-house or?
Both. So we have a bit of a hybrid model. We have an internal agency, which we call Dell Blue, and then we work with VML Y&R out of New York. So they're our creative agency, and then we work really closely with MediaCom as well, with our media agency, to help us bring it all together and amplify it at the right time.
So clearly it's video, and we'll get into sort of what are the channels that are the ones that you were working with for this campaign. But was it easy? Was it challenging figuring out production for that?
Ah, yes. So, okay, through the magic of technology, which, hey, we're on it, it's part of the conversation. So, our creative team, we instantly were up on like doing Zoom meetings all the time. So that was fine. But when it came time to produce it, a lot of us who done like a lot of video shoots, you go to the set, and it's all very much in person. And all of a sudden we were dealing with, just it wasn't safe to travel, it wasn't safe to shoot. And how do we, keep both our team members safe? How do we keep, the people in the spot safe too? And so what we ended up doing was our agency team, like a very handful of them, and they volunteered. They flew to Slovenia, and so they had a remote production in Slovenia. And then we would video in so we could actually watch it live happening as it was going on. So it was really funny. We're basically on set, and we have all these cameras, and I'm saying this because this is literally where I was watching the takes, and then we could provide immediate feedback. So it was really this like make it up as we go along and figure it out, and it turned out really well.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, the power of technology, right?
Yeah. Oh, seriously. Yeah. It was. In fact, I was telling them. This is kind of a, like a spoiled person, but you know how you're in video set and you have like the craft bar, and so I was like, the craft bar is really lame at my house today, but we're all trying to adapt.
You these coworkers that are about 5 feet tall that are really annoying.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you about them. Yes, my kids. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I think it's always helpful to understand big brands like yours. What works for you? What channels are you investing in, especially for such a major campaign like this? So if you could share with us that'd be great.
Yeah. So okay. So like the media channels, I presume. Were
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So right now, we need to tell our story, and and we need to do a lot of education, because when people hear Dell Technologies, even though you have the technologies on it, and people still think computers, and for good reason. We've been in this market for how many years, having computers, and so we have a lot of education to do. So really, we feel like the best way to tell our story is through video. And the best way to deliver it today, still, we are finding, and we look through data all the time, is linear TV. We've shifted our approach a bit. We focus more on those live news and sports, and making sure, especially with that sports, that we're capturing some of those big moments, those big cultural moments. But then we also complement it with targeted CTV, online TV, and of course, we still do a lot on digital, and then really our any partnerships as well. And really, over the past year too, we have shifted a little bit since the pandemic. In I would call the before times, we had a pretty robust out of home strategy, where we found that a lot of our C suite, which is our B2B target audience, they travel a lot for work, they travel a lot for pleasure. And so we had a big, robust global out of home strategy that really targeted them wherever they were in the world, and some of the biggest airport hubs. But a year ago, travel plummeted. So we really had to shift that. We shifted a lot of that into TV. but we still really like what out of home delivers, which is impact. And so, once business travel gets back up and running, we still want to look into that space because we feel like there's a lot of opportunity. But I would say now it's really TV and digital where we're focusing our efforts.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
It's good to hear that you're a big proponent of out of home, being my own bias.
Hey, we love it, love it. In fact, we've traveled around the world just to look at some of our big placements, and if you're looking, airports have just completely changed, and you can just do so much. You can just really be part of that experience. It's pretty exciting.
I know there's something, special about being able to take a picture of it. It's like kind of put
I
your flag
know.
and I know,
Exactly.
and just traveling in general is nice.
It
Um,
is.
so-
I miss it. I miss it. Yeah.
Me too. Um, if you were to travel, just let's insert this little personal question. If you were to travel somewhere right now, where would you be headed?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. I've always had Greece as I've always wanted to go and just hang out. I've done a decent amount of travel, but that's a country I've never gotten to yet.
Nice. Me too. Me too. Uh, Love it. I know my son is like a huge fan of Greek food, so I'm like, perfect,
Oh,
perfect entree.
Mediterranean is
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So, I wanted to ask you, like, as far as additional big initiatives, are you going to continue with this campaign throughout the remainder of the year? Is this like sort of your North Star for this year?
It is. So as as you'll see in March, we have a spot coming out that really kind of talks about our vision for our company, and then in May we're gonna roll out another more solutions focused campaign. But it's all around stop at nothing, and you will start to see it being embraced, just across all of our B2B activities, and it's really become an internal anthem as well. So not only is it starting to be our external facing platform, but internally we're saying like, hey man, we stopped at nothing to do this, and it's become a great motivator internally as well. So yes, this is our new creative platform, and we want to continue to use it and evolve it, as long as it works.
I know. Personally, when I hear that tagline, I think of like so many people asking me. I'm in Brooklyn right now, and like they're asking me about the city and how is it and is it weird and I just kind of am like, we don't stop at anything. Like the city will be back. Like I have no concern
Yeah.
about that. It's just it might be different, but it'll still be wonderful.
Oh,
So it resonates to me as well on many
oh
levels.
good.
From a diversity and inclusion perspective,
Mhm.
where does Dell sit in that game? Have they upped their game? What are their goals for the years to come as far as that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a lot going on here, and I hope I capture it all right. Which is, we fully recognize, and this past year was also a big, you looking in the mirror opportunity to say, how do we feel about this as a company, and then how do we prepare and attract like our future workforce. And what we do know is that having a diverse workforce provides significant business and social value. And so, how do we go about doing it? And so, diversity inclusion truly is in our DNA. We talk about it a lot, and we're acting on it. So, right now we have, I'm just going to through a couple. We have a couple what we call moonshot goals. So by 2030, we've put this out there that we want 50% of our global workforce and about 40% of our people leaders to be those who identify as women. So that's out there. And then we also have that 25% of our US workforce and 15% of our US people leaders will be, Black, African American, and Hispanic, Latino. And so really putting those out there is great. But we also, as a people manager, I said, this is great. I completely support this goal, but what are we going to do about it? Like, how do I do this? So we've really looked at our HR recruiting processes and have implemented some industry standard practices, really ensuring that we have diverse people who are on that interview slate. So our HR talent attraction team has really been tasked with making sure that they have a pipeline that is diverse, so they get interviewed and considered, and making sure that that's part of our interviewing practice. So that's one way. And then we also do work with several different organizations, and we have a whole host of them. We have a big giving area of Dell Technologies, but some that are especially I brought up for today is we're looking at really where does that pipeline start? It starts when people are young. So we volunteer and help fund with Girls Who Code, which is a national organization to increase the number of women in technology. This is kind of fun because I actually have a Girl Scout in my house, but we partner with Girl Scouts, and now there's actually a Coding for Good badge. Um,
Mm.
we also partner with a company called Girl Start, who really they work with middle school aged, and they really drive interest in STEM programs and getting them involved in that. So there's a lot of places, and this is just the tip of the iceberg that I was wanted to share today.
That's awesome. I love it. I know. I got to tell you, science and math were not my forte, so I love that yeah, we're pushing this.
That's why I'm in marketing.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
why I'm here.
I know. Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people ask these questions on panels, but from a marketing perspective, what are some of the learnings over this past year that you really think that will stick and be adopted for the years to come?
I mean, I think first of all, the thing that we learned, my team learned the most, is just to be agile. Because it's one of those things of like this best laid plans, and we have this planning cycle, which we still will have a long planning cycle. But I think we got caught a little bit on being like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? But we actually responded, very quickly, and I even look back and I'm like, wow, how did we pull that off? Just I think what we are going to start to build into our future organization is really what's that agileness that we want to build into it. I know there's agile processes. We're looking at those too, but making sure that we can be responsive when we need to. And then globally, this is more of a technology. Is companies have realized that digital transformation is critical. There's this funny like Twitter post that was out of like who was responsible for your digital transformation. It was like multiple choice, like your CEO, your CIO, or COVID. Of course, COVID is the correct answer. And we saw this a lot, which is organizations now know how important it is to digitally transform because they were caught. They were caught, not having done what they probably needed to do. And now I think this momentum is going to stick because businesses, they need to be prepared, and they realize that now more than ever. And so we're really working with that to figure out how can we partner with businesses that need to digitally transform so they can do it more easily, agilely, and in a way that they can afford to as well.
Oh, yeah, it's so true. That's great. Um, so tell me a little bit, I mean, speaking to technology advancements and needing to sort of be above the curve here, can you share with us some of the ways in which Dell is always kind of ensuring that they stay ahead of the game? Um,
Yeah. So, I mean, technology is constantly changing. It's just a fact of life. So, at Dell Technologies, we do a host of initiatives to figure out what's next. Of course, like investing in research and development is critical. So we have a big arm that's all they do. Also, investing in the right talent, bringing in the right people who have new ideas, and making sure we have the right people in place as well as the right pipeline in place. But I think the most important thing is just listening. Especially listening to our customers and understanding like what their visions are, and how can we adapt to come up with solutions to get them there. And one of the things that we've been starting to look at, especially in this past year, is how we are looking to shift to more like as a service, and what that can do for our customers who need to suddenly digitally transform, but they don't know how to plan for that type of infrastructure, or need more agility or control when it comes to their data, and then that technology that supports it. So it's really keeping your ear to the ground, but also trying to look forward as much as possible.
so yeah, because you had mentioned as a service earlier, and I was just like, can you just define exactly what that means? Because it sounds interesting, and I'm not really sure what the term is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a term we're going to hear a lot about. In simpler terms, and how I wrap my head around it too. And trust me, I've talked to a lot of technology people, and I'm like, so does it mean this? How I've been able to explain it is that it's really pay for what you use. So if you look at like the utilities industry, for example, although maybe not Texas, given the recent,
Oh gosh.
right? But rather how people consume utilities. That infrastructure is in place, but then you pay for what you use. And so we want to start to do that with technology, but with better transparency, better cost transparency, you really agility and offering control. So we actually do have some big announcements coming up in May that I'm really excited about.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, that seems like so cost effective and efficient for brand, I mean, for companies that it makes a lot of sense to move into that direction for sure.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and it takes taking on a big chunk of like we need to digitally transform. That can be daunting and complex and expensive. And this allows, companies to step into it in a way where they don't have to buy the infrastructure. They can, ease their way into it and just pay for what they use. So yeah, we're excited.
abs- Absolutely. And so before we get into Q&As, because I see them populating as we speak, how are you balancing just the work and life situation? And
Yeah.
we know it's a challenge for all. So
Oh, yes. I mean, take it day by day. And I've really come to give myself grace because, I think the person that's most hardest on me is me. And since this is like women in marketing focus, I'll be a bit more open. Like, I'm divorced and I have two kids. So, having this job and then co parenting, especially in this past year, has been real. And it hasn't been easy. So, as long as everyone is safe, I've really tried to just go with the flow. Rather than control or get paranoid about what I could or should be doing. Do we do virtual school? Do we bring, it's just like there's so many choices. I've just tried to, just kind of go with the flow and be like, you know what, we're all going to take care of each other. I hope. And then I'm also, the other thing is I'm also an introvert. And so I'm constantly trying to manage my energy, really by not giving too much of it away. So, I get really excited about things and I can get energetically exhausted really quickly. So it's all about like, how do I either strategically block my calendar or get up earlier in order to get some of that, time to get back and get grounded. So like for me, it comes down to being present. I meditate as often as I can. I really cannot wait to get back to yoga studios and be able to do yoga without a mask on. I'm like super excited. But in the meantime, it's just like I do the best I can and cut myself some grace.
nice, nice. How long have you meditated in one session before? Have you?
Oh gosh, I can go over an hour easily.
Oh, really?
For me, I have more like I have to be somewhere or someone's knocking on my door, but I can do it for a while.
I know that this like there's noise in the background, it definitely like impacts my ability to stay focused for sure.
Oh, it does. And that's why it's like I have to be like the days I have my kids, I'm like, sometimes I don't do it, but when I don't, then I'm like, oh, yes. And cat in the garage, and I just, get to work.
Nice. I know. I mean, they say the wealth of, what it brings to your mind and body and soul is
Mhm.
incredible. So that's great. I need to work on that and continue to focus.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I do it, but I still need to work on it.
Ugh. So there's some really awesome questions here. I kind of grazed over them. So let's see here.
Okay,
I think you might be able to see them too if you'd like to be visual and
let me
read.
see. I'm going to see if I
Otherwise,
can figure out this technology. Yes.
I can read them though. What are the biggest challenges and enablers in realizing the vision of your marketing strategy and transformation goals over the next 12 to 36 months?
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
That's a big question. And we've been thinking about this a lot, and specifically in that B2B space. So a bit of history about Dell Technologies is we've kind of like stepped into this B2B space. So we have a lot of let's just say innovation in pockets of our B2B teams. But now we're actually like as of months ago, we're actually pulling all of our B2B marketing campaigns together. So like that end to end journey really takes place like out of our team. And so, I think for us, we have this huge opportunity to figure out what is that end to end journey from shifting perception to driving the business to keeping the business. And that's one of the things that we really are working to wrap our heads around is what are some of those B2B motions we need to be really smart about, especially as we go into announcing new products, announcing new solutions. How from B2B perspective, how do we balance that, and what rises to the top that we hone in on?
So I guess like the focus there is not necessarily on like how many new clients that we can bring on, but it's like how do we make sure we bring the right things, the right products, the right messaging to our existing.
Yeah, and it's about like right product, right message, right audience, and that B2B journey in technology is complex. There's a lot of people touch technology purchases. There's the CEO, the CIO, then there's the IT decision makers, and so there's a lot of different people that go into it. And so we're trying to figure out. We've had pockets of people talking to the IT person. We've had people looking at that CXO. Right now, our biggest challenge is how do we bring these conversations together so they make sense for the right person at the right time.
Great. So the second one seems to be similar. So I'm going to go to the next one. Given the rapid speed of culture today, how do you think about maintaining relevance and structuring for agility? Oh, agile
Mhm.
content creation.
Yeah.
You kind of touched upon.
Yeah, so that's a great question and something that we're working on. So I don't have a full answer for this, but we are starting to dive into agile work approach, which our tech and engineering team uses agile quite a bit as they develop programming. But we're looking to say, how can we adapt that for marketing? And it's not a like rip and replace, but it's like, what are some of those goodness that we can take out of that and use and build into our processes as well. For now, starting to build teams that just really focus on that rapid response. So we have that bandwidth available for things that pop up. So it's like almost like we're planning for things to pop up. And so that's one of the things that we're doing now. But then as we start to look at our processes, how do we build that into everything we do and how we think?
Great. This is actually a nice one. Can you share some best practices and learnings about content marketing for the other brand marketers in the audience?
Oh, so
Best
much,
practice.
so much. Okay, I'm going to go back just a wee bit for this. And so when we first launched Dell Technologies, one of our biggest challenges was, first of all, what the heck is Dell Technologies? And we had this big like consumer mindset. And what we wanted to do is like, how can we start to build credibility in the marketplace around Dell Technologies? And we really pointed towards content. And so we did a couple things. Immediately, we're like, how do we make content fast? And so we did a couple things. First of all, we started partnering with publishers. So really, which is a nice way to get someone to make content for you. But we partnered with them in the fact that we had that strategic insight with them, but making sure that Dell Technologies and our B2B capabilities came through in that content. But then we also built up a site. If you go to delltechnologies.com/perspectives, I'm very proud of it. We actually built up and stood up our own content site as well. And really, the purpose of this site is not to sell a product; it's to engage. And so, really making sure that when they come to our platform to read about the next AI, they read about how's 5G going to change our daily lives, and since they're having and reading that on our platform, we get some of that credibility of like we're driving some of those technology conversations. So that's one way. The other thing that we've done is we've dipped our toe into the podcast realm as well. So right now the one my team starts to run is called Trailblazers with Walter Isaacson, which is just really about engaging on the kind of technology light topics that we find are interesting. And so that's been a great way just to get our brand hosting conversations about technology to build that credibility.
That's smart. Definitely smart. Um, so just Lauren Galanti wanted to tell you that she loves the stop at nothing message. So so is Dell incorporating corporate purpose messaging into that campaign? Stop at nothing when chasing equity.
Say that again. Did they incorporate what?
Oh, sorry, am I quiet talking?
Right.
Is Dell incorporating corporate purpose messaging into?
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you asked about that. So we have a report that's called Progress Made Real, and really we've just started because Stop at Nothing is new. It's a baby right now. But I've actually been talking to the social impact team and how do we build that into how we talk about our sustainability. We consistently rank really high on sustainable business practices and really setting those moonshot goals in a leadership point of view. And so you can easily see how that messaging adopts of like, hey, we saw that there were actually, and this is a true story. We used to say, let's get plastic out of oceans. And so that was just one of our missions. And so we did things like, advocate for don't use straws, and we would host like beach cleanups. And so, but then we didn't stop there. Next, we actually turned that plastic into packaging for our computers. And so now our computers, if anyone orders a Dell Technologies computer, the packaging is completely sustainable, and it's made from recycled goods. It's made from renewable resources. So really looking at how do we integrate it into our storytelling in a way that's still authentic and relevant. And we're really excited about the possibilities.
Nice. Packaged with love for our earth.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see here. I actually like this one. How people engage with content is constantly evolving. What emerging trends do you see coming that you'll need to address in the next year? And I feel like everyone's saying gaming, but I'm assuming that maybe I don't know.
We do. I mean, gaming is big for us, but then like I always have to have that B2B lens. So, but the funny thing is, it's like we have in past times when we've had Dell Technologies World, it's big in Las Vegas. Alienware is actually part of the Dell Technologies family, so it's a huge gaming thing. In during Dell Technologies World, we have this huge like live gaming. It's like being broadcast, and that's like the most popular place that people just stop in and hang out, and they play games or they watch people play games, which I'm still wrapping my head around all the time. They go on YouTube and they watch people play games. I'm like, don't you want to play it?
It's like us watching people play sports, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. So gaming is great. We're trying to figure out that B2B connection. But like that's why I'm just looking like, I think voice, Clubhouse, everyone's talking about Clubhouse these days. We've kind of dabbled in that. Does that make sense? Right now we're waiting and seeing. And honestly, I see a lot of opportunity with this in building my team. In fact, I've had a lot of conversations with of how we evolve our team, and young people in who just come with ideas that I think are crazy, but are probably going to be what is that next generation of B2B makers, like what gets them engaged. So you're really trying to crack that
I guess we'll take one more. So do you believe that personalization of content is required for B2B as well?
nut. Ooh, oh, that's such a good question. Okay, talk about this a lot, obviously, and what we are really doing is looking at that journey, that shifting perception to that consideration, converting it, selling it, and then having that relationship. And what we look at from that broad reach perspective, that's where we want to have that broad message, where we probably won't personalize at that broad reach level. It's really about educating, telling people about our, our capabilities, really. But when you start to go down to that funnel, that's where I think it does need to get more personalized. So that's where we start to look at, okay, we're actually talking to an ITDM right now. Their perception hopefully has been shifted, but now they need to understand speeds and feeds. So really understanding the platform and that conversation we're having, which a lot of times with media, they can target on technology platforms, and we can have more of a we know we're targeting ITDMs here. So I would say yes, but I think it's down the funnel, not at the top of it.
Wonderful.
Like personalization, which that's a whole other conversation as well.
All right.
Great. Well, thank you both for taking time today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and so interesting to hear about how Dell went about pivoting throughout the pandemic.